Good morning, everyone. Yes, it's morning here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or Northport, Alabama. I know it's noon Eastern over on the East Coast, and Eastern time. Yeah, it's noon. It's 2 or 3 minutes into the afternoon. Okay, so my name is Cassandra Williamson, and I am the executive director for Transgender Diverse Veterans of America and our Action Group, which is all that whole big name that I just said, plus Action Group at the end. One is a C3, one is able to do advocacy and policy, legislative stuff like that. And that's where the bulk of our conversations actually will take place on a daily basis, because there's just so much out there that's actually going after who we are in our own nation, the nation for which we served. Wow. Who knew that we'd have to fight so hard for our own right to live freely in our own country? I mean, it's just ridiculous to even think that that's a possibility or something that we would have to do. But there are some real and very present threats to our existence right here in our own nation today. Don't believe it? Hang on. We're going to talk a little bit about it. But first, let me take these glasses off because I've got the wrong ones on. Don't have anti-glare, apparently. Put these down and get the other glasses on. I can't really see what I'm reading unless I have something like this on. That helps a little bit, I think, with the glare. So anyway, yeah, a lot to talk about today. By now, most of you have received the opinion piece of the letter, the email that I sent out this morning. Thank you for reading through that. I appreciate your time for doing so. If you haven't, you can find it just about anywhere these days. You can reach out to them if you want, and I'll make sure you get a copy of it. But anyway, it had a couple of things in. I'm actually going to show some of that and talk from that today. But to bring you up to date, let's see. Been working on putting a grant application together for our Go Transport program over in the TDVA side of things, the C3 side. That program, the Go Transport program, is being built and designed and implemented by our amazing Sarah Colasanto, as the chairwoman of the board of TDVA, as well as her team, vice chairperson Illyria Stanley, and chair members and board members Kirsten Lahawash, Crystal Harris, and Stacy Lunsford. That team is working on putting this program together, and we expect to roll it out in November. Now, what will that program do? Well, the first part of it is that the program will fill in the gap of transportation needs our veterans may have to get to and from their VA appointments. That's the biggest part about it, okay? Obviously, it's tailored toward those most in need. The highest priority would be those with intersecting identities who may be older and LGBTQ plus veterans, or a racial minority who are also experiencing kind of issues with all those things. But it's all LGBTQ plus veterans, making sure you can get to your appointments at the VA if you are in need. If you have no other way to get there, then that's what this program is designed to do. So we've been putting together the final parts of a grant application for that. So we'll see how it turns out. Okay, we don't know for sure. I mean, this is highly competitive process, but it has to be turned in by close of business today, which I'll get the rest of it done after I get off the show. So that's one of the other big things. That's one of the big things we're working on at this point. I believe that Sarah and her team with the TDVA board, they've got a website already created. It's under development still, though, so that people can go in and access that kind of care. And then we will have to be, the individual, the veteran who has that appointment, can reach out and request transportation if they need it to their VA appointments locally, wherever that might be. And but it's going to be, we'll roll it out in just a handful of locations initially. And then the goal is to push it out across the whole country for all veterans in need. So those major places we're looking at this point in time are New York City, as well as Boston, Nashville, Tennessee, and Richmond, Virginia. Those are the areas that we're looking at rolling this thing out into to help our veterans get to the care that they have rightfully earned. So vetting them and making sure that we're doing the means testing and all that, well, that's relatively easy to do. All you do is call up the VA and see, does this say, it is actually easy to do. With the permission of the veteran, you call up the VA, confirm the appointment, or the VA can be the one who calls in the appointment as well. I mean, if it's we know then one that they qualify, and because the VA is their patient's VA or being cared for by the VA. So that's a big project, a big program of ours that getting ready to kick it off. We're super, super, super excited about that. And I look forward to have Sarah Colasanto on this show sometime to be able to talk with you about what that program entails and how she's implementing it and how you can get involved in making sure it gets funded properly. Because as you can imagine, just use this number as an example, okay? We know from, Sarah found out from the VAs there in New York City, not the Manhattan or the Bronx, whichever one, there in New York, there are about 80 veterans per month who are unable to get to their appointment because of transportation needs. Now, 80 doesn't seem like a lot, but I'm telling you, the average price of a ride for Uber, we're using Uber. The Uber is the one who's backing this up at this point in time. They're putting some money towards making it happen. The dashboard is all through them and stuff like that. But this is no cost to the veteran. So a veteran in need can get to their appointment. But if you take just 80 people a month in New York City, and oh my gosh, and you're looking at, maybe another 60 in Boston, another 60 or so in the Nashville area. What do you got there? 180 already. And you're looking at, 80, 120, 200. You're looking at 200 right there on a monthly basis. Richmond may have 40. I don't know who need rides, can't get there, whatever. Who knows? We don't know exactly the numbers out in those other communities. We just know the one in New York. So if you're looking at 240 roughly a month just in those cities, just in those communities. And the average ride, let's say, Uber says in New York, it's about $60. So if the average ride is 60 and you've got 240 people in there, how much money is it going to take to run that on a monthly basis? All right, 240. Let's go. Let's pull up a number here. 240. Well, that's not 240. That's 2,000. 240 times 60, and that's just a one-way trip, by the way. It's $14,400 a month. And you can see that really quickly the numbers will add up if we roll this out nationally. You're looking at, that's just in 6 places, 5. New York, Boston, Nashville, Richmond, that's 4 places. Really, that's just 4 places across the country right there. If you want to roll this out to where the greatest need occurs for the highest priority populations, then the numbers will come down from that 80 in New York City if you just prioritize diverse veterans, diverse meaning transgender, LGBTQ plus, and the intersections that has with all the other different identities. You're looking at a lot of money per month just in those cities. So that's 14,000, let's say, one way, 28,000 or $29,000 a month for a round trip cost to get veterans in need to and from their VA appointments. It's not a cheap thing. It's not inexpensive. Let's put it that way. The other part of this is with Uber Health. Now, the VA does cover some of that with Uber Help if that veteran is in New York. If you're 100% disabled, you have a 100% rating with the VA in the New York system, then they'll cover your transportation costs free, and they'll reach out to Uber and take care of it themselves, or they can come to us. Either way, but they get their money back for that, or however it works. It actually is covered by the cost of the rating, under the rating. However, in El Paso, that number is like 30% rating. So you've got a lot of people below that who aren't covered. And then New York, you've got a lot of people below the 100% that aren't covered. So there's a lot of ways out here. This is going to ramp up quickly across the country. So if you just take that 14,000 in 4 cities, 4 communities, roll that out across the country, you're looking at an enormous sum of money that's going to be used to fund getting our veterans to and from the appointments that they are unable to get to themselves. We're filling in that gap. And that means that this number, that 80 or the 240, just in these 4 communities, that represents veterans who are unable to get to VA for their scheduled appointments. 240 just in those 4 communities who are unable to get the care that they have earned because they can't get there. Us filling in that gap, us stepping in and filling in that gap is a major, major, major accomplishment because one, it helps with their medical health, their physical well-being, and their thriving and those things, but it also helps with mental health and their mental well-being, and they're thriving in that regard as well. I mean, it's a huge benefit to our veterans because it gets them to the care that they need, gets them there, gets them back home. If they're homeless or whatever, we can help in that area. I mean, if they need toiletries or something like that, we want to be able to pick up those things too, get in there. But this program, the Go Transport program, will be the defining huge thing that comes out of TDVA, the C3 side. This is the biggest thing that we've got our eyes set on right now. To roll this thing out just in those 4 communities is about $28,000 for round trip trips to the VA in those 4 communities. That's what we're estimating. It's probably going to be about that much. Now, that's fine because we've got a lot of people out there willing to help make that happen. Now, here's the other part of this factor too, that in the LGBTQ plus community who are veterans, it's hard to find HIPAA compliant drivers, for one thing, who can keep you and your identity all closed in and protected, as well as drivers who are culturally competent. And that's part of what Uber is offering us with their Uber Health program that we've set up with them. Now, Uber has agreed to put in about, I think it's $2,000 a month. Yeah, $2,000 a month toward this. That's a long way from that 14,000 or the 28,000. That's a long way from that. We're looking at a lot of money going towards this. Now, obviously, that number will go up and down, but we will track that information. We'll find out. And obviously, we'll have to roll out the communication of it as well. So it's going to cost to get it out there. The VA is going to be engaged with us in this capacity too. So you're looking at making sure our veterans get HIPAA compliant transportation to and from VA, culturally competent transportation to and from VA. And we know that there are many veterans who are not getting the care at the VA that they need because of stigma, for one thing, or they have a bad image of what the VA has done in the past and is still holding over, or in the military, in their military time or whatever, they had experienced lots of trauma, particularly if it's sexual trauma, military sexual trauma. That makes it hard for that person just to get out of the car in a darkened parking deck and walk through this gauntlet of people to get to their appointment. The same is true for transgender people or LGBT veterans who have to go through all of that too and be seen. You have to walk through all that. So part of this process is making sure that veteran gets to the care that they need with the least amount of harm to them in any way possible. Okay. That's a big goal for what we want to do with the Go Transport program. HIPAA compliant, culturally competent, get that veteran to the care that they need, be that shoulder they can stand on and lean on and they know they're safe with to go into that care as we develop this program out. Those are things that we're going to march into, literally. So That's the big stuff that I wanted to talk about on the C3 side of things. Let me get a drink for the rest of it. This is just a soda, by the way. Just, yeah. Oh, jeez. And now, let me see. Is there some music I can get into this with? Let's go with this one. Here comes the next part of the show. And the next part of this show is going to revolve around, the action group side. Are you ready? Here we go. If you haven't heard of the Project 2025 yet, it's produced by the Heritage Foundation in collaboration with 70 other organizations around this country. Well, I want to make sure you do hear of it. I want to put a huge spotlight on the atrociousness, the horrifying language used in this document called Project 2025, a Mandate for Leadership, that the conservatives in this country, the extreme right conservatives, let me make it clear, the extreme right conservative Americans, I want to add that in there too, because they are just as American as any other American, and they are just as deserving of protection of the Constitution as all other Americans, period. Okay, make sure that's clear. No one's excluded. If you are a naturalized American, or you were born here or whatever, and you're an American, then you're deserving of the full protections of that Constitution and all the amendments associated with it. No ideology can be used to divide you from that protection. You can be a conservative, you can be a liberal, you can be whatever you want to be, or none of those, or independent completely, or any other things. As a matter of fact, even those people who are neo-Nazis here in this country, or whomever else, whatever, the far left or the far right, they're all, if they are Americans and they meet the qualifications to be an American, such as naturalization or being born here, then they're protected by the U.S. Constitution. All of us. But this document, the Project 2025 thing, is a manifesto as well as a blueprint. It's a blueprint to enable the far right extreme conservative Americans to lord it over the rest of the country, to write the country into the way they view it to be. Now, it's just atrocious. It really is. It's horrifying. And why is this such a big concern to me? Why should it be a big concern to you? I mean, why is this document? It's a 920-page document. I don't expect anyone to go through and read the whole darn thing. All you have to do is read through the first 17 numbered pages, and that's enough to tell you exactly what they want to do, who they are, and how they want to go about doing it. But why is this a big deal? Ordinarily, if it were just some small organization out there putting this manifesto together, and some organization that wasn't well connected and who had no influence in the selection of Supreme Court justices or presidents or leaders in government. I mean, if it was just a nobody, no face organization, then it would be wise to just not pay them any attention. Just let it go, because they're just trying to get your attention. However, the Heritage Foundation, last year on their 990 IRS tax forms, they had a leftover money. They had leftover money of $265 million. And between the Heritage Foundation, Alliance Defending Freedom, the America First Legal, and a whole bunch of other far right conservative leaning, actually conservative over in the far right ditch, American conservative groups, all came together, hundreds. I mean, the groups, there were like 70 different organizations all came together back in April of 2022 to come up with this guide, this blueprint of how they want to take over government and shape it in their image, as if the rest of America aren't American enough for them. they think they have the right to tell the rest of us, the other half of the country, that we should be like them and not like us. But that's just craziness to start out with. So anyway, why is it a big concern? Why am I worried about that? Why am I worried about the lack of focus and the lack of energy behind the people over here who see what's coming and we're doing nothing about it? We're pretending that this is not a big threat. Well, let me tell you why it is. The last time that Heritage actually put out a document like this? Do you? Well, go back to the late 1970s. Now, Heritage was formed and founded in the mid-70s, I believe, mid-1970s, somewhere in there. But let me see. Carter was president towards the end of this period of time in the late 70s into 79 and first part of 80. And then Reagan took over as president. Well, Heritage Foundation had created a blueprint then, but they didn't have the collaboration and the consensus formed document that they wanted from all these other organizations. They just didn't have that then. They didn't have a solid blueprint. They didn't have a list of people to step in immediately after the president said, "So help me God." They didn't have that then. But yet, when Reagan took office, within the first 100 days, and he had bought into this already because, he had already agreed to do this before he even said, "So help me God." All right. With no structure, with no good, solid strategic plan, they were able to get 60% of that manifesto, that blueprint, accomplished. They learned from that one. They considered that a mild success, but failure. They wanted 100% of it. So 100% of their ideas pushed through within the first 100 days of the Reagan presidency. They were unable to get the 100%. So they took that as a learning opportunity to figure out a way to actually get to close to 100% as possible of their ideals and ideas in the whole of government, across the whole of the federal enterprise. So, they learned one thing about it. And one thing that we have a challenge with and the difficulty with is thinking strategically, being prepared for something down the road, setting the stage for things to happen the way they should happen, the way we want them to happen 10 years from now. In their case, 40 or 50 years down the road. They've been planning this for a long time. They were waiting for a lot of things to line up. They didn't have to really dictate every part of it because other organizations would help with that, but they were all moving in the same general direction. Now you've got a court on their side. Now you've got conservative presidential candidates who are fully aware of this document, this 920-page document that Heritage wants rolled out. As soon as the new president says, and if that president is a conservative, they want to be able to say, "So help me God, here's your document." And not only the document, but here is the list of vetted, proven, tested, trained people to step across into every agency and branch, or every agency and department in the executive branch of the federal government. This time they learned. They created a strategy, and not just a strategy, but implementation strategies to make sure that this was actually accomplished. They began recruiting people over the summer of this year to be ready to step into places within the federal government if they take the White House in 2025. If they do that, their plans are this. They and these other organizations put aside $22 million toward this project so that they could make it happen. And if you're not prepared for that, if you don't see that as a real threat, then they will do what the document says. In the forward to that document, in the forward to that document, let me go see something. Well, anyway, in the forward to that document, words like these are used. Literally. Delete, erase, excise. And then italicized, they put real people out here. And then talking about American family, their definition of the family. Obviously, it's an American family. My family is an American family. Your family is an American family. If it doesn't look like what they believe that American family should look like, then this little italicized part of real people, well, obviously what they're saying is those are unreal people. And by implication, they're saying unreal Americans, not real Americans. But then they also say natural in the same paragraph, natural versus unnatural. And they clamor so much about all the different things that are divisive in this country. Well, that document accomplishes divisiveness. There's hypocrisy in the darn thing. But they use words like, as I said a minute ago, erase, delete, excise. Those words specifically, real people, and unnatural. But their biggest target are transgender people in the country. Their biggest target. They put a bullseye on us. They attribute to us. Now, obviously, this is a characteristic of fascism, to try to find a scapegoat or an enemy that you can focus all your effort and energy on. That's what they've done with this thing. Sure as hell, that's what they've done with it. They put that big bullseye on transgender people, and they blame us for all the failings of so-called failings of American society today. You don't believe that's what they did? Go read the thing yourself. You can find it on our website. I've got a link to it right there on the, as a matter of fact, you can actually read it, that document on the website. Check it out. Don't believe it? Read it. Go to the forward. Go to the forward, written in, in the first 17 numbered pages. Then the document. You don't even have to get into chapter 1. You can go right straight to that forward, and in the first couple of paragraphs, you find out who they're after. You find them targeting a specific person and blaming that group of people for the ills, perceived ills of American society and the decline of their definition of an American family. They blame it on the transgender people in the country. And then they say, we're going to go ahead and erase and delete and excise from the whole of the executive branch of our federal government in every rule, policy, piece of legislation, everything, anywhere across the government that mentions these words. And they use them specifically. They're telling you what they want to do on day one when they walk into all these agencies and departments in the executive branch. If you're familiar with DE&I, diversity, equity, inclusion, all those words are to be erased, deleted, and excised from the whole of government. The word abortion is to be removed, excised, deleted, erased from the whole of the federal government. Another term, SOGI, S-O-G-I, which is an acronym used in research more often than not. And it specifically is discussing and researching and looking at the health and wellness of the social determinants of health of this particular group of people. Sexual orientation, gender identity, SOGI group. They want to remove those words, excise them and delete them and erase them from the whole of government. That would effectively wipe out and defund and remove from existence the offices in the National Institute of Health that study these things. Any programs over in the Census Bureau that might want to just, need to address these concerns, because we've known for decades that there are social determinants of health depending upon your minority status and the intersection of multiple identities. We know that. That's the case. It's always been the case. And whether or not you see that or not, well, open your eyes. But it would remove across the whole of the government DE&I programs, sexual orientation, and gender identity research and programs. It would wipe them away. There would be no minority offices in the VA. There'd be no program offices for LGBT veterans. There'd be no programs for, any minority veteran. Now, they're going to leave a few in there because, they can get votes that way if they leave them in there. They're not going to just wipe them out. The Center for Minority Veterans in the VA, well, they'll make sure that's just repurposed to look at only the ones they want to look at and not all of those sexual orientation, gender identity, LGBTQ plus people over there. Not them. No, not them. Nope, not doing it. That's what they want to do. If you can remove the language from all the rules, policies, regulations, agencies, departments across the whole of the federal enterprise, you effectively remove any recognition that those people even exist. And then they've got the target on the transgender people for everything else that bothers them. Okay? Everything. I mean, in the same sentences, they conflate transgender people with pornography and sexual deviance and stuff like that. It is just stupid. That's an argument that's been used forever and ever and ever, and it is as wrong now as it was then. So anyway, it just gets under my skin. I hope you can see that. It's like, But you know what bothers me even more is that I get so little people who are interested in actually doing anything about it. So few organizations who know these things are out there, so few organizations are actually standing up and saying, we know it's a problem. Help, help, help. Come together. Let's join in this fight, this good fight to take on this thing, this monstrosity called Project 2025. They have every expectation that if they win the White House, they will accomplish the things in it. If that doesn't scare the bejesus out of you, I don't know what will. And yet, so few people are responding back to me saying, what can I do? How can I help? All I can think is, well, we've tried that in the past. Here's what's going on. There are people who are saying, this is how we did it yesterday, or this is how we did it 50 years ago, or this is what we did then. Well, I can tell you, you had some small steps forward. You made some great gains along the way. But this Project 2025 will reverse all of that and put it into the negative territory fast. If you think you have marriage equality, they're after that too. I mean, literally after every bit of it. All they have to do is claim religious liberty. And they are big on pushing that. And that way they will weaken every darn thing that they don't want in this country that doesn't match their vision of what the country should look like. I mean, all they have to do is claim, it violates our religious liberty, or it's a violation of the First Amendment, or as actually what Dr. Roberts said in the forward. He lumps, pornography and sexualization of children and transgender people and all of those into the same asinine group that's all in his own head and the heads of those he's fooled with this kind of crap. Put them all together and said they're not protected by the First Amendment. My God, Dr. Roberts, you're an early American historian. Come on. Oh my gosh. Hey, if you want to talk about it, come on the show. You and I can definitely have a good conversation, because I respect you as an American, but your opinions that you put in this thing that you want to see accomplished across the whole of the federal government, across this America that consists of all of us, then just we need to talk. That's all there is to it. But the question is, if we talked, would we hear each other? I don't know. I don't know. Each of us has words that appeal to the groups that we respect and that we're actually working with. I get that. I know that's just the way this game works, right? However, that thing is, I mean, you're well on your way to establishing this. You're falling headlong towards this spiraling into fascism, and you don't believe that either? Well, okay, then. Let's take a look at what back in 2003, the spring of 2003, this person by the name of Lawrence Britt put together, after reviewing fascist nations around the world for a period of time, from Pinochet to Mussolini to Hitler to others, there were several others in there, and found the 14 things that was the same among all of them, what defined them, the 14 characteristics of a fascist country. So let me go up here and pull this thing up for you in just 1 second. StreamYard, watch the image. Okay, I need to find the document. Hold on. I'm scrolling through all my different tabs. Just hang on with me. I'm going to pull up Lawrence Britt's document. I'll just have to look it up, I guess. Okay. No problem. I'll just go over here. Project 2025. Oh, there it is. Okay, now let me get this pulled up to the page up there. I'm going to go back to StreamYard and share this page with you for your enlightenment. And somebody made a comment. Let me see if it's worth responding to. 23 million American gay people can stop this. Yes, Radical Rodent, absolutely. 23 million, but it's more than that. You got 23 million, and I'll put this up here. But that 23 million is actually the entire LGBTQ plus population in the U.S. That's the estimated number of how many Americans are in that community, the LGBTQ plus community. If every single one of them gave $1 a month or 50 cents a month to help us fight this, we could be well on our way to doing it. But it's going to take that. It's going to take that because we have to change the narrative, get control of it somehow or the other. And it's just going to take us all coming together and saying, hey, this is a fight for our lives, the freedoms. It's the fight for our lives, our freedoms, our well-being, our happiness. That's what this is, real and dangerous. And if you don't get on board with it and help us fight this thing in some way, well, you're going to get what you deserve. That's all there is to it. So let me go in and take a look at this document I wanted to share really quickly after I get this out of the way. 1 second. Yes, it affects, right? And I'm going to put this up here. And Radical Rodent also said this affects every American. This has an impact on every American. Yes, it does. It absolutely does. But how many are going to step up and say, I'm ready to help? How many are going to pull their pocketbook up and go, here, we've got to fight this, because these people will, if they take the White House in January 2025, they will be ready to go in immediately and reshape the whole of the executive branch of our government in their image. I mean, geez, come on. What more can I say about it? Oh my gosh, it's just crazy. All right, let me see if I can share this screen again. Where are we? Okay, I got to find the right screen. Give me a second. We're going to share some things. I want you to look down through here. Watch with me. Here we go, y'all. The 14 Characteristics of Fascism by Lawrence Britt, spring of 2003 in the Free Inquiry magazine. Okay. Now, let me go and expand this just a little bit. I don't know if you can read that clearly or not, but we'll find out. I'm going to just read it right here. Political scientist Dr. Lawrence Britt recently wrote, and this is obviously recently in 2003, an article about fascism. He studied the fascist regimes in Germany, Hitler's fascist regime, Mussolini, Franco in Spain, over in Suharto in Indonesia, Pinochet in Chile, and found those common characteristics that defined them. Now, there's some changes that I would make to it, particularly on this first one, because, America is my country too, okay? I fully support the Constitution of my country, and I am very much, let me see, an American completely through and through, whatever. And, for me, this is powerful. Here's characteristic number one. Let's just see how many of these you can check off. Powerful and continuing nationalism, that should be read as ultra-nationalism, to the point of, if you aren't one of us, you aren't one of us. At the end of a gun, kind of aren't one of us kind of stuff. That's ultra-nationalism. Disdain for the recognition of human rights, well, ta-da! In the forward, we see that the forward to Project 2025, written by Dr. Kevin Roberts, is replete with that. They are there. I mean, they tell you what they want to do. Complete abolition of human rights recognition across the whole of government. I mean, that's 1 and 2. Identification of enemies, scapegoats as a unifying cause. All right, so here I am as a transgender veteran. They've decided to make me the enemy. They're scapegoating me and my family and people like me. They're scapegoating us to rally around them. And what have they been doing? They've been projecting this narrative, heritage, in coordination with the Washington Examiner and Alliance Defending Freedom and America First Legal. I mean, they're tied at the hip. So what they're doing is they have been creating for the past 3 or 4 years this narrative about transgender veterans or transgender people in the country. You can look back through and see it. If you haven't seen it, you're not paying attention. If you haven't watched it, of course, I mean, you get fed the news that you like to read. The algorithm kicks it in there. But if you aren't seeing stuff about this rising tempo of people attacking transgender people and their rights to live freely in their own nation, many of whom are veterans, it's been there. It's growing. There are a massive number of bills that have been made into laws across 23 of the states in this nation. There has been a consistent attack against transgender people for a number of years. They've built this crescendo up there and made us the scapegoat. Here it is, item number 3. And they've been building to it. That's how this thing works. It's psychological warfare 101. All right. Build the narrative. We don't stop it because us, meaning this side of the line, we don't say anything about it because, we hope it'll go away. Well, it's been happening for a while now. The path that this leads to is our destruction. Half of America. Okay, let's go on down. Supremacy of the military. Well, I'm actually a supporter of the supremacy of the military. But yeah, I mean, this would be an extreme case, okay? Rampant sexism. Oh, my. Oh, my. I don't think there's much that needs to be said about that one. It's what we see coming out of the far extreme right Americans, conservative Americans side and their point of view. Misogyny, sexism, denigration of women, subjugation of women back into the biblical definition of it, of putting a woman in the kitchen and raising babies at home, and no need for education because that's your goal in life. That's your role in life, right? Well, I mean, unless, of course, you're going to change things, but, whatever. Rampant sexism. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Controlled mass media. Now, I will tell you this too, and I'll be fair about this. Both sides or all sides, not both, all sides of this have their own media sources they know to turn to. That's a given. And it comes naturally in this country because George Washington had to call out Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson because they were each using the media the way that, the print media at that time, that's all they had, They each were using the media to further their own views of what America should be and attacking each other. Well, I think that has become, that's just normal. That's probably not something that we should probably even throw in there anymore, because it's just a part of who we are. We know that. We've seen it over all these centuries and millennia. He who controls the news and can write the news can direct the outcome of the course of a country or nation or people. That's, yeah. All right. So, obsession with national security. Yeah. Religion and government are intertwined. Over the past number of years, there's been this huge overt push to do away with the separation between church and state. These far-right extremist American conservatives are doing that now. They are finding ways to roll back that disconnect, the wall that's between religion and government. They've already pushed up through several different bills or several different cases that have gone to the Supreme Court that whittle away at that take away, that nibble at the edges of that separation of church and state. They've already built this thing up. They've already started it. They will go the whole way and turn it into a theocratic republic. Yeah, they will. That's what they want. That's what they've always wanted. It's called Christian nationalism, right? Corporate power is protected. Oh my, do I need to say anything about that one? I mean, in the forward to Project 2025, I'm classified as somebody who doesn't have First Amendment protections under the U.S. Constitution, because I don't have the proper personhood to qualify for that. But a corporation has personhood and does have protections under the U.S. Constitution. So that makes you feel really good to know that a corporation has more personhood than you as an LGBTQ plus American. Boy, isn't that reassuring? Labor power, I mean, these are obvious. Corporate power is protected. Labor power is suppressed, because it's all about making sure the business makes the money and the people who own the businesses get to reap the rewards of all of that stuff without any consideration for the well-being, health, and wellness of the labor force. That's just the way it is over there on the far right, extreme conservative American viewpoint. All right. Disdain for intellectuals and the arts. Need I say more? Need I say more? They're trying to do everything in their power to destroy the free exercise of conversation and discourse on America's campuses. And that means all the way from elementary school through postgraduate school. They think they haven't been heard. They feel like they've been left out of the conversation. No, you haven't. You have not. Well, I mean, you are removing books from schools. Some do need to be removed. Just to be clear, some do need to be removed. Got it? Fine, good, gone. However, that can't be the modus operandi of getting control of the intellectuals and the arts, because it offends you in some way. Whenever you start going after the academics in this country, I mean, as you are, if you're over on the extreme right conservative American side of the fence, then that's number 11 on Brit's list. Obsession with crime and punishment. Law and order, crime and punishment. How many times do we hear that coming from the conservative right American side? Every breath they got something about law and order. Law and order this, law and order that. But yet they have a person in the name with the name of Trump who has 91 felony charges against him, and yet that person has more than 50% of the approval and support of the far right extremist Americans over there on the other side, far surpassing any of the other candidates running for president on that side. Well, it's an obsession with crime and punishment, but it only depends if that person who they're applying those principles to aren't them. Really? Okay. Rampant cronyism and corruption. Well, goodness, who needs to go there? I mean, both sides have done that. Both sides have done that. Don't get me wrong, that applies to both. Fraudulent elections, the claim of fraudulent elections, or saying that election was wrong, it's fraudulent, challenging the elections, attacking the center of our government over perceived fraudulent elections when no evidence at all ever supported those claims. But yet, it's important to do that because that kind of helps divide the country even further, right? They are claiming that we are divisive. Well, I'm going to tell you, the stuff that they have been doing is the most divisive I've ever seen. It's subterfuge. It's horrendous what's going on. And oh my God. So how many of those points has Dr. Roberts actually checked off? Let me see. You've got one for continuing and powerful and continuing ultranationalism. That's what I'd put in there. That's one. Disdain for recognition of human rights. That's two. Identification of enemies and scapegoats. That's three. Supremacy of the military is four. Rampant sexism is five. Controlled mass media is six. Obsession with national security is seven. Religion and government intertwined is eight. So far, it's 8 out of 14. Corporate power protected, that's 9. Labor power suppressed, there's 10. Disdain for intellectuals in the arts. And even though we've got this person who is an early American historian as president of the Heritage Foundation and as president of Heritage Action, there's two different parts, sister organizations, just so you know, Heritage Action and Heritage Foundation. Just even though he is an academic, and many of the people who are in these organizations are academic in nature, by training, they're not after all of them. They're only after the ones they disagree with. Okay, right. So if they can paint you over on the left, if they can paint you as being someone on the left, then they think you should be gone. Even though the left is just as American as the right. Okay, whatever. That's 11. 12, yes. Obsession with crime and punishment. Oh my God, yes. Fraudulent election claims, yes. So they match every single one of those 14 criteria, the 14 characteristics of fascism. Wow. But yet, whenever I say something like this, that what we're seeing is reminiscent of Hitler style, Mussolini style fascism, I get pushback from my own community about it. But yet, every one of these characteristics they've met. Every one. And then you get people who are like, but you said it this way and that way and this kind of thing. Look, for one thing, the people who believe all this stuff over there in Heritage Foundation, Heritage Action, and the Alliance Defending Freedom, all those different organizations, you will never, ever hear me say they are not Americans. But yet, they want to call us unnatural, not real people, deserving to be excised, erased, deleted from the whole of federal enterprise, and that we are, by our identities, not protected by the First Amendment, which means not protected under the Constitution. And said another way, a corporation has more personhood than I do in this view of the world that they have. And here we are sitting around claiming that, or saying that, oh, just be quiet, don't put a spotlight on it. Well, let me tell you, if we don't put a spotlight on this now to show the world what they want to accomplish across the whole of our nation, they will get what they want. They will get more than the 60% they got the last time they did this with Reagan. they will get nearly 100% of it. And you and I will take generations to ever again see the light of day in this country. With that, it's time to get in here and do something. It's time to put your money where your mouth is. It's time to get out here and do something now. Hope you have a good day. I've got to go back to finishing the grant application stuff for our C3 side for Go Transport. Keep all this stuff in mind. We'll talk about it again tomorrow. If you want to come on and chat with me about it, let's have that conversation. I don't care if you agree with me or if you do not agree with me. This platform that I'm on right here, right now, you're more than welcome to come here and talk about it. With that, have a great day, everyone. Talk to you later.